I grew up in a small, quiet town nestled between forests, with one road that snaked its way through, ending in a place no one ever really talked about. Hollow Road was infamous, not because of its peculiar curve or its cracked pavement, but because of the house that stood at its very end. People whispered about it, but no one ever went there. That house had been abandoned for years. My friends and I used to dare each other to run up to the porch and knock, but no one was brave enough to actually step inside. Its windows were always dark, the roof sagged like it could cave in at any moment, and the front door was slightly ajar as if it was waiting for someone to come in, or something to come out. This story starts on a cold October evening. I was driving home from a late shift at work, eyes heavy from lack of sleep. I took the familiar route, passing the dimly lit streets, when my car started sputtering. The engine coughed once, twice, and then nothing. I tried turning the key, but it wouldn't start. Of all the places to break down, I had to be right next to Hollow Road. I didn't have many options. My phone had just enough battery to make one call, but of course, no service. I could walk home, but it would take at least an hour, or I could cut across Hollow Road, a much faster route. It was stupid, I know, but the freezing wind made the decision for me. I grabbed my flashlight and headed down the infamous street, the heavy silence of the woods pressing in from all sides. As I walked, the trees cast long shadows on the cracked pavement. Each step echoed, making it seem like something was following me. I kept checking over my shoulder, but it was always empty. Just when I thought I was being paranoid, the wind picked up, sending a gust of rotten leaves swirling around me. That's when I saw it. The house at the end of Hollow Road, barely visible through the thickening fog. I had no intention of going near it, but as I passed by, I noticed something strange. The front door, usually hanging ajar, was now wide open, as if someone had been inside. I froze, staring at the dark, gaping entrance, and then I saw the flicker of a light from inside. I told myself to keep walking. The stories were just that, stories. But something in the pit of my stomach tightened. What if someone was actually in there? What if they needed help? Or worse, what if it wasn't someone, but something else? Before I knew it, my feet had already moved toward the house. The porch creaked under my weight, and I stood just outside the doorway, flashlight shaking in my hand. "Hello?" I called out. My voice sounded strange, too loud in the suffocating silence. No response. I shone my light inside, the beam cutting through layers of dust hanging in the air. The entryway was small and cluttered with broken furniture and debris. The light I had seen from the road had disappeared, swallowed by the house's darkness. But there was something faint, at the end of the hallway. It almost looked like a person, hunched over, sitting on the floor. "Hello?" I called again, louder this time. Nothing. Against my better judgment, I stepped inside. The floor creaked with every step, like a warning. I kept the flashlight trained ahead, the beam bouncing off the walls, catching glimpses of old picture frames and torn wallpaper. I walked down the hallway, closer to the figure. It didn't move. I was only a few feet away when I finally got a good look. My heart dropped. It wasn't a person at all. It was a bundle of clothes, drenched in something dark, something that looked suspiciously like blood. My throat tightened as I tried to swallow, and I nearly jumped out of my skin when I heard a sound coming from the floor above. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, right above me. I wanted to turn and run. Every part of my brain screamed at me to leave, but my body refused to move. Instead, I found myself shining the flashlight toward the staircase, the beam stretching up the warped wooden steps. The footsteps continued, each one echoing in my ears, growing closer to the top of the stairs. My breath quickened as I crept toward the steps. Maybe it was an animal or some squatter who had taken refuge in the house. Maybe it was nothing. But when I reached the base of the stairs, I saw something that nearly made my heart stop. A hand. A pale, thin hand slowly gripped the banister at the top of the staircase. My legs felt like lead, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. The hand was followed by an arm, and then, slowly, a face came into view. an old, gaunt face with hollow eyes that seemed to stare right through me. I stumbled backward, flashlight flickering as I fumbled to point it at the figure. The person, if it was a person, stood at the top of the stairs, unmoving. My flashlight flickered again, then went out entirely, plunging me into darkness. I scrambled to smack it back on, and when the light came back, the figure was gone. But the footsteps hadn't stopped. They were still there, only this time, they were right behind me. I spun around, shining the light wildly, but there was nothing, just the empty hallway stretching out in front of me. But then, I felt it, a cold breath on the back of my neck. I bolted. Without thinking, I turned and ran, my feet barely keeping up with my racing heart. The house seemed to close in around me, the walls warping, the floor groaning as if it might give way at any moment. My flashlight bounced erratically, casting wild shadows on the walls, and the door, thank God the front door, was still open. I sprinted for it, my lungs burning, but just as I reached the threshold, the door slammed shut in front of me with a deafening bang. I skidded to a stop, my heart hammering in my chest. I yanked on the doorknob. It wouldn't budge. I pulled harder, but it was like the house itself was holding me in. Behind me, the sound of footsteps started again, slow, deliberate, closer. I didn't dare turn around. Instead, I pounded on the door, screaming for help, my fists bruising against the wood. The footsteps were right behind me now, and I felt that icy breath on my neck once more. Then, in the faint light cast by my flashlight, I saw it. Scratched into the door, barely visible, were words. "You're already dead." The footsteps stopped. I froze, too terrified to move. Slowly, I turned the flashlight toward the room behind me. It was empty. No one was there. I don't know how long I stood there, trembling, waiting for something, anything, to happen. But nothing did. Eventually, with shaking hands, I tried the door again. This time it creaked open, as if it had never been stuck at all. I bolted out of the house, running back down Hollow Road as fast as my legs could carry me. When I finally made it back to my car, it started on the first try. I've never gone back to that house, but sometimes, late at night, when I'm lying in bed, I still hear those footsteps, slow, deliberate. And every time I feel that cold breath on the back of my neck.